Code 3 discusses real first responder experiences, including trauma, PTSD, and critical incidents. Some content may be triggering. If you are struggling or in crisis, please call or text 988 for support. Viewer discretion advised.
Officers are on scene.
What I was ordered to do went against my moral
I was
code.
always in that fight or flight. Instead, mine was just always fight.
The officer who was the target of the investigation took his life.
Literally, there were days where the last thing I did at work was watch somebody die.
And I almost passed away because of it, but a doctor saved my life.
We have 211 and 454 South Main. Backup needed.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Code 3 podcast, episode number 3. Today, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Dr. Tumulty Felice, who is here to talk to us about resiliency and some other things. Kate and I go way back. We've worked on several projects together over the years, one being a kind of new resiliency class we helped some people create the curriculum for and all that. Kate will give you a little bit about her background next. And, you know, we've known each other and helped each other through a lot of things. And it's really, really my honor to have her here today.
Hi, I'm Kate. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's my honor to be here with all of you and to know you and to have had the privilege to work with you. I am a teacher. I teach college students, so I'm a professor. I did start my career in law enforcement and have spent a lot of time in education. It's kind of come full circle with the work that you're talking about because I've been able to work in the space of trauma and resilience, which is an honor to my family. My dad was a police officer, as you know, shot in the line of duty. He lived, but I learned a lot about what the job entails and carries.
Exactly.
So it's my privilege and honor to be here to be able to talk about that and to maybe be next to you as you help so many people.
What's your experience as law enforcement? What did you do?
I started very young, much against what my dad told me, and by accident kind of went into a prosecutor's office. So I worked in major crimes and a little bit of time in narcotics undercover. I spent a lot of time working with kids and kids who had been through unimaginable circumstances. And as much as I loved the job, I wanted to go into something that was proactive where I could help kids and thought, I'll give this a try and been here ever since.
Awesome.
And it's my privilege and honor to work in education because it's, as is law enforcement, connected to so many other agencies where we're just trying to work together to help people.
Exactly.
So you're a doctor.
I'm a doctor of education, not a
Okay.
medical doctor.
Right.
So my specialty, if you will, is teaching and learning. Trying to, the way I look at it is, I'm a practical pracademic, if you will. I'm about how things are done more so than the research is important, but what does it actually do to change lives?
Mhm.
So really, if I had to boil it down, what I focus on is behavior change. How can we do the things we do so that we're walking the talk and it changes behavior and actually helps people?
That's interesting.
Now, I know you've mentioned working with children a lot. I think the audience and I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with, I don't know if these guys are, if you don't mind talking about ACEs a little bit and what that means to you and all that.
Absolutely. So that's an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And it's a study was done in the early 90s. The research has been reinforced ever since, looking at kids who experience adverse experiences, stress, chronic trauma from the ages 0 to 18. And how that affects their long-term health.
Okay.
And so if I gave you the condensed version of that, and the research has held up over time, kids who experience early adversity, people who experience chronic stress and adversity tend to have health outcomes correlated to that. That if there isn't something that mitigates that pattern, that pathway to chronic stress and trauma and adversity, that the health outcomes are pretty scary.
Yes.
A reality that a lot of people know: higher incidence rates of cancer, heart disease, lung disease, suicidality, anxiety, depression. The top 7 of the top 10 leading causes of death in the country today are correlated to early childhood adversity and chronic adversity. And I think that's especially relevant in a space like this because I've been privileged, and we all have, to work with helpers, and I'm among helpers right here. And I haven't met a helper yet who hasn't experienced early adversity and known what it feels like to need that kind of help. So it's not just your own stress and trauma, it's the vicarious trauma that you experience from your community and from the people around you. And we carry that.
So, I mean, as we've all worked in law enforcement, so we've all been around other people's trauma. And I know through my experiences in the police department that I picked up a lot of that and held it for a very long time. I was just actually starting to unsort a lot of it kind of when we first met doing that one project. And I remember asking you a million questions, as you just explained. That's why I learned a lot of the nuts and bolts of how psychology works and your mind and body work as in relation to things that happen when you were a child. Because I went through a lot of childhood traumas, which, we all do, but some are worse than others. And that's how it is. But I learned that those experiences influenced how I reacted to things in my adult life, where you guys saw me going through the major stuff. I mean, I think we talked about last time when I was starting to have panic attacks in internal affairs. And it was just an outcome of stress around me, but that went back to certain things in my childhood, the same amount, different types of stress, but the same reactions. And as a kid, even then, back in 2006, 7, 8, I didn't know what was happening, because I didn't understand what I've learned over the past decade or so since I, left Trenton and started really working on refocusing my energies on myself.
And watching you go through the panic attacks in the office, I never saw anyone go through a panic attack.
Exactly.
So seeing you for the first time and experience, I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what's going on? And you explained it to me. It was hard for me too, because I'm like, what's going on? Because I never had experienced that before.
Right.
You were the first person that I actually watch have a panic attack.
Right.
So I didn't know how to react or what to do in that situation.
It was so scary for me at the time. First of all, you remember the political climate, right?
Yes.
If you had stress, what were they doing to you?
Add more stress.
You go to see their psychologist and they're trying to fire you pretty much immediately, right? So don't show stress because you're going to get fired. You're definitely getting basically suspended. And who wants to go through that? So you deal with it.
Yeah.
And embarrassed. Yeah. It's going to be all over the place. There's no confidentiality. So I hid it, and that's how it just culminated. Like if you squeeze a balloon, it's going to pop out around your fingers. And that's what happened. And poof, it eventually broke for me. I'm sure you guys remember how much I was drinking back then and all that, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. It got worse. It got way worse in that career, I managed everything the wrong way. What I should have done is what I do now, physical fitness and working out and all that. But back then it was, but I was seeing doctors too. And it's like, here's a bottle of Xanax, but nobody warned me that if you take Xanax on a regular basis, it actually really starts to accentuate the feelings of stress and trauma. So the anxiety I was trying to kill is getting worse because I'm taking this pill over time and time again. I saw a special on CNN. I believe the journalist's name is Lisa Ling. Does that sound right? Mm-hmm. She did something on the effects of what that was like. Now, according to that, Xanax is only supposed to be a Band-Aid. Like I'm going for a flight and I really panic when I'm up in the air. Take a Xanax. I'm having a dental appointment. Take a Xanax. It's not supposed to be taken twice a day, 3 times a day, And it really screwed me up. I got addicted to it. And it really took me down a path. And when I watched the special on CNN, I was watching this young adult male acting exactly how I was. Like the panic attacks were through the roof, just crying and really upset. Not even angry, just like this hurt animal kind of thing almost, right? And I was like, wow, that was me. And he was taking a Xanax and he ended up killing himself,
Well, they say if you take Xanax for a long period of time, coming off of it is very dangerous. If you just do it like cold turkey.
Yeah, that happened to me too. That's later down the line, but I'll get to that. Yeah. That's part of my whole experience later down. I'm kind of chronological.
All right. So real quick, just to, when Joe and I were having conversations about starting this podcast, we were throwing it around for a little bit of time. And I had been thinking about you.
Right.
I said, I got to know you well. We saw each other occasionally.
Yeah, we used to Fridays.
Smoothie bar or whatever. Yep. So I was thinking, man, Mike would be a really good co-host for this show. So I pitched it to Joe, and Joe was like, okay. And as a result, the chemistry between us has been great.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's been working well. And I knew that you would be a good co-host because of the fact of all that you had gone through.
Right.
During your police officer career.
Right.
So let's start off by exactly where we left off last show, where you spoke about the panic attacks, and then take it from there, and then we'll have the doctor jump in and analyze you, I guess.
All right. Sounds good to me. So panic attacks are internal affairs. We talked about how certain supervisors had made me do things. Now I've learned since why I was having the panic attacks, because I was being forced to do things that were against my moral code, as we all talked about. You know, you're going to charge this guy before there's an investigation, told to do things that weren't fair and not right. And I'm not about stabbing people in the back. I can't do it. I'm not about politics, I learned either, you know, and there was so much politics because of the administration back then. It just wasn't a good fit for me. Now, I loved internal affairs work. I was really good at that, you know. Our captain in internal affairs, I will say, was a great leader, one of the best I've ever worked for in my life. I know he watches the podcast, and like, thank you. You know what I mean? He really took care of me. You know, he was a good dude.
He was.
And we had a couple other bosses subsequently, lieutenants that were really good bosses too.
We had some bad ones too.
We did, but you guys know what I'm saying. He took care of me during that time. He let me like leave early and just like, all right, Mike, I got you, you know, and it really, really, really helped. Having that little bit of understanding without understanding. But I was just going home and trying to deal with it. I went to see a psychiatrist, and, you know, there I am on the Xanax, which helped for a little while, but I was still having the feelings of panic. And then there was that one incident where the internal affairs supervisor made up something completely about me, interfering with investigation, the kind of thing that would have got me arrested. Thank God I had proof. You know, it was easy to prove that I didn't do what happened, so it got cleared, whatever. But that's just like, I needed to get out of there at that point, if you remember. So I started to find a way out, and I used some skills I've had hidden in my back pocket, and got appointed to the Trenton Police IT unit, you know. So, all right, I'm gonna do some programming. So I jumped into that, did really good for a while. And then back in 2009, February 13th, 2009 to be exact, Friday 13th, I destroyed my left leg. I don't remember if I got into that last week.
Yeah, you did.
So yeah, there I am.
We spoke about that during the sick check.
That's right. Yeah, the sick check thing. So yeah, there I am, and like they're giving me bottles and bottles and bottles of pain pills. So there's me the Xanax in one hand and Percocet in the other, unlimited supply back in 2009. Nowadays they don't give you hardly any, just enough for like a couple of days. You know, I've had surgeries, and so I got addicted to both, and it was brutal. Plus I was drinking. Plus I was stressed. Plus, you know, I'm trying to fight for my leg back, right? And eventually, somehow, a cold turkey, I quit the opiates. I don't know how. I just did. I just didn't want to do it anymore, so I did. I never got past pills, you know, thank God. But it was like taking 3, 4, 5 at a time sometimes, and that's who I was, you know, at that point. It was a mess.
So you were taking the pills and drinking vodka?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if I was drinking vodka back then, and I was not drinking as much as I ended up drinking years later. That came later.
Okay.
And I really wasn't abusing the Xanax too bad at that point, but I was taking it on a daily basis,
You
like
were
as
abusing it.
prescribed. No, well, it was by today's terms, but I was following the directions on the bottle at that point in time. However, that's what led to the worst panic attacks. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So Xanax can calm you down and make you more anxious?
Over time, it makes you more anxious.
Really?
I don't know the science behind it. You know, I'm not.
So they're in a class called benzodiazepines.
Correct.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Correct. That's how it affected me, and it's affected other people. And there's research on that, you know, based on that CNN show and all that. So
yeah,
you know, so I ended up in the IT thing, but then I had the broken leg, and so I really, really, really fought to get back. I'm supposed to come back. All right, I'm all set. Like I actually got myself in really good shape coming back from that. I really attacked PT. I felt really good. I had a placement right in the TAC unit, which I was totally excited to be, go back, work with the captain. And I had a partner, was a good friend of mine. I'm like, heck yeah, we're going there. And then that particular sergeant from internal affairs meddled into it with the director because there was I found myself being transferred from a very prominent detective position in IT to Midnight's Patrol. Like, all right. F this place.
Retaliation.
You know yeah, total retaliation. So I remember driving in my first night, and I did not want to go back to patrol. At that point, I had already said to myself, I never want to be in patrol again. You know, when I was working in IT, you guys know the difference, you know, especially back then. Well, there I am. Midnight, driving into work at 9:30 at night, and I'm just so unhappy, so miserable, and the panic attacks were continuing, you know. But it took me like a month or two. I got back into it, and then I was kind of like doing okay with work. I had a good vibe going, you know. There were younger kids in my squad, and things were going great, and I felt good. Now, during this time, I was actually seeking support. I was seeing a therapist on a regular basis, and I was also seeking support from an organization called Cop to Cop, which is a really good organization. It's a phone call. You just, you know, for law enforcement, they help you get through things, and they will help you get resources for like therapy and things like that. So they helped me with the occasional phone calls or me calling them when I was super stressed out. You get a cop on the end, a retired cop on the end, and that kind of helps. So that's really good. And then I was just, I had no morale though. I'm working midnights and all that, and just it was really bad. And then if you remember the layoffs, right? But there was a point where they were talking about layoffs in Trenton Police, but they never came to fruition for like and then a year later, they did lay people off. However, when that first thing came to fruition, the guys in my squad who were all getting laid off, I was like the only one who wasn't because they were so junior to me.
Mm-hmm.
The work ethic really plummeted. And it was challenging to work with guys that had zero morale, understandably, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, like normally when you'd have 5 or 6 cars show up for backup, you weren't getting anybody. And it was not fun. And I decided that I didn't really want to work in a partner car that way because I was going to too many hot jobs. And I decided it was part of me just wanting to escape from things too, maybe responsibility. I decided I want to work solo. So I talked to my sergeant, went out in the West District for a good 18 months by myself. Those were the most dangerous times of my life. Those 18 months was so dangerous. I was dangerous to myself. It was so out of hand.
How are you dangerous to yourself, Mike?
I was suicidal, quite honestly. I was doing things in a job that would have killed me. I was going to places that I knew would be occupied by criminals, and I was doing it by myself. I wasn't putting on the radio. I was walking through like Roger Gardens, just me and my machine gun. You know what I mean? Just walking around looking for something to happen.
So your machine gun too?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
I work on my UMP,
Okay, so you were looking for something.
Yep. I was going through the stairwells. You know how that goes in those buildings. And I was
by
just
yourself?
Looking. Yeah.
At nighttime?
Yep. Yeah, and I didn't put it out. I did a lot of that. A lot of like walking behind like Sanhecan and in the alleyways back there on Sanhecan.
Did you ever tell anybody about this other than here?
No, I mean, not really. No, but it's just really reckless behavior,
Yeah.
Very reckless.
And I was like, I was a maniac too. Like, I mean, not in a good way. Like I was doing good police work. Don't get it wrong. I was doing good police work. I was making good arrests and all this, but it was like, every hot job I was running towards. If there was gunfire, I was screaming towards it. I just wanted to be in the middle of all that craziness. And I'm a bit of a intensity junkie, as we've talked about, but that was my escape at the time. Now, I pulled over a car one day. I ran it, and whatever the computer said, it advised me that the dudes in the car, one of the dude that owned the car was a member of the Pagans motorcycle gang. There were like 5 dudes in the car. So I'm like, oh, this is me. So I pull it over, and I'm like going at it hard at these dudes. And the dude says to me, one of the guys in the passenger, he goes, let me tell you something, man. You trying to get yourself killed. This gangster like tells me that. They had all the colors on. They were just coming probably from the bar or something like that, but nobody seemed to be really intoxicated. So really, I found my PC for like, around the corner without stopping kind of thing. And just this dude kind of said something and something snapped. And I go, I really am doing that. Like he was the first one who pointed it out.
So he
for some reason that guy had like an impact on me,
Yeah.
And they were kind of cool at the end, and I was cool with them. Like it changed my attitude, and it was just strange the source that it came from.
They're probably coming from the same place because of what they're involved in.
Yeah, because they're mentally like, it's a game between us and but it really affected me,
So
and
Doctor, what do you think that's all about? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and you said something interesting because you said, about the mind-body connection and the fact that you were so off-balanced. And if you think about it, our whole system, our mind, our body, everything seeks to be balanced. And when you're that askew, when you're so far away from peace, intensity is going to be, the balance is so far off that finding the middle ground, the healthy ground, is really elusive. So I feel like, it's not just the things that happen to us, it's the effects of the things that happen to us. And we recognize that in other people. There's a lot of commonality to trauma. Good guys, bad guys, kids, adults. It's not necessarily a thing that happened. The thing might have a different term. It's the feeling inside that it creates, and you recognize it in somebody else when they're feeling it, and when they're, you're being reckless. Somebody reckless is going to pick up on that and say, "I see you."
Yes,
I felt it too.
Yes.
What's amazing about that is that no one in the department picked up on that.
I had one incident, and it really, really, really. And people noticed because I broke down. So we go to a job at DOA. Turns out it's a 13-year-old female, right? She's lying in her bed. And I'm, Mike, you got to stay up in the room. I'm like, great. You know what I mean? Just sitting there with this deceased little girl. Her phone was there, and I'm looking through it, looking for clues. You're waiting for the detectives to get up there. She helped out a little bit, and the phone was just open. It wasn't like, it was literally open. And so she's texting somebody. I'm falling asleep. Like, I could tell that there were pills involved, and she fell asleep. And turned out she was pregnant, and that was the result. And my daughter was around that age, and I'm in that room, and like this rookie comes up, and he's looking at me with a smile on his face, and I'm like tearing up, and I'm just like, it was hitting me so, like my heart rate's like flying. I'm like sweating, and he looked at me strange. Like, bro, I need you to take over for me. Like, I know enough to get the heck out of there because it was not going to end up well. And then I went down. I think somebody had told my Sarge, because he was just like, yo, Mike, go home. And everybody else had to stay because it was like one of those late jobs kind of thing. It was like 7:30 or you're done at 8 o'clock kind of thing. So like, just go home. You're good. I did and got out of there, but I'll just never forget that. The long and short of it is I found out years later from somebody else who knew that family that the girl wasn't pregnant. It was a
false positive.
Something. Which is just so tragic. You know what I mean?
So, Mike, when we were at my home and we were practicing for the podcast, you talked about a lot of things that I went back and I watched the episode that we recorded at my home. And you spoke about how you were drinking, I had no idea what it was. A handle?
Yeah, a handle.
Of vodka a day.
It got to that point. But that didn't. So during this time when I was running around by myself, I was drinking a lot, but I wasn't drinking it 4 days on. I was drinking 4 days off. I was drinking 4 days on. I wasn't. It got worse. You know what I'm saying? When the layoffs actually did come, and they laid off 108 of us.
It was
108 on September 16th, 2011. They laid off junior officers pretty much 7, 8 years or less. My midnight shift went from 22 to 12. So we had like 6 cars, basically, 6 2-man cars. The thing is, working that midnight shift, I worked with a lot of the younger guys as less senior people, all the ones that got laid off. And that was like my friends group, I lost them all like in one day. The people I hung out with, people I was going out with. Now, like I said, I was drinking 4 days on, 4 days off, but a lot of the drinking then was social drinking. So it wasn't like out of hand, So I would go to like a bar and like have dinner and have a few drinks. And then like I would be able to I was not drinking enough or I couldn't get home, although sometimes I definitely should have been driving, but it wasn't like awful. But then when the layoffs actually did come, I ended up with the best partner I could have during that time. That dude and I, thank God for him. Thank God, we went through 2 years of really doing some crazy stuff. And I was very blessed with his presence, and the partner that replaced him when he went to another shift was another partner that was really great. My last 2 partners on the street really helped me get through things. And I think that's why I survived, because I really enjoyed working with them. The violence really started to get bad though, when the layoffs happened, if you guys recall. We were handling some nights like 20 shots fired calls in a 10-hour shift, or actually we were pretty much all doing 15-hour shifts at that point.
Makes sense, right? Less cops,
right. And we were so exhausted, like literally working 15 hours, 4 days a week. And then 1 day off, I would probably work 15 hours. But the overtime was there. And like, you're like working it. We were handling 30 to 40 calls for service a night. It made me like a 10-hour shift, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, sometimes it was all violent.
There were a lot of backed up calls also during that time because you didn't have units to respond to the calls for service.
There was nobody to respond anywhere. There were nights where my partner and I were the only car available. So you're trying to get through stuff, but like, how do you there's a crime, interfere with it, and then there's no cops available? There were times where people were getting shot, and we were like, well, let them go to the hospital. We'll get there when we can. That's how it was, Shots fired was just through the roof. I mean, it was insane, We had a record homicide rate that year. I think it was 43 for such a small city, 7 square miles, 43 homicides.
Was that during the period where the gang violence and the gang?
No, that was 3 and 4, or 4 and 5, or something like that, right, Joe?
Yeah, but it was starting.
This was after all that blood Crip stuff ended, and this was just the neighborhood gangs, like up top and like all that, like in West End.
Up top?
Down up
Hermitage,
Bricktown, Hermitage, all that, all those gangs, whatever they were down San Deacon, Gangster Killer Bloods, all those dudes, whatever G-Shine they turned their name to or whatever. I forget now. It's been a long time. So on May 14th, 2012, that really changed my life. That's when things really got bad for me with the alcohol.
Mhm.
Okay. I was patrolling. It was around midnight, 12:30. I forget exactly, but I was with a guy who did a switch day with my normal partner. And so it was an old friend of mine, you know, I hadn't talked to him in a while. So I'm like happy to be working with him, just so, you know, reacquaint for the 10 hours, whatever. I make a left on the Stuyvesant from Prospect. We had our windows down. I remember it being like, I remember it so clear. It was like a hazy, misty night, you know, the windshield wipers would be on like delay, whatever. And we're just talking. And then we got to right near Christoph Street on Stuyvesant, and bang, 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 like shots fired. And they were really loud, you know, and something told me that instant that somebody's shooting at me, but I wasn't sure. So I hit the gas we were driving a Ford Explorer, marked police unit, and we got out of Dodge. And I turned around and we're both like, they shooting at us? And we're kind of like having this discussion if they did. So my partner, he's got his gun out just in case, you know, because we're only like 2 blocks away from it. I look down Stuyvesant and the street light was right there. And all I see is like smoke. So I'm like, that was close, you know?
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking it could have been somebody shooting at somebody on the sidewalk, but I didn't see any muzzle flash or anything like that. I put it out on the radio and he's like, that was an automatic rifle. Let's not go down there until we get some backup. And like, I put that information out and then, you know, you hear the sirens, like, okay, thank God, that good sound. So everybody shows up and then I look at the car, my sergeant, I'm like 1 hole, 2 hole, 3 hole, 4 hole. There was a bunch of holes in that car and there were a bunch of holes in the car surrounding it, you know? Long story short, this guy who just decided he wanted to kill a cop that particular night ended up lighting us up with an M1 carbine, which is a 30 caliber assault rifle, like World War II Korea aged weapon, but very deadly. You know, he had a magazine in it and he was able to do automatic gunfire. I had a bullet hit the A-frame right next to my head here. I had one go through the light bar frame on the exterior of the car. I had one hit the top of the luggage rack, go into the roof of the car, and it literally slid along the interior of the roof thing, like along where my head was. The one went through like where the tire is almost, and like kind of, it's probably 3 inches from my left foot, really. And then one went through the back tailgate, through the back of the prisoner cage, which is metal, and went to the front of the prisoner cage, right where my partner, if it had penetrated the front of it, it went right into his spine. It was below the vest, above his belt, that little exposed area between your vest and your belt. That's where it would have hit. But it stopped in the front of the cage and went dunk and fell to the floor. This big old slug. You know, it's crazy, right? So that's what we talked about before about, you know, the department handle it like, Mike, you're not in a shooting the next day. You know, go to your general doctor they told me to go to, and you're going to come back to work in 4 days, whatever it was. I'm like, okay. So I did, you know, my partner I think I talked about this, about how he kind of got punished for wanting to not come back to the street at that time. You know, they gave him a miserable position, a miserable job, doing miserable things. And I was like, I need to stay in patrol, or at least I have the freedom to drive and handle my job. So I did. I stayed in patrol and things were fine. I thought they were, at least, but my drinking started to increase. It became, I'm not social drinking anymore. I'm drinking by myself, and I'm drinking to forget everything. And if I'm not at work, I'm drinking. You know, it got to that point during those 2 years, the first 2 years of the layoffs, where I was coming home. And at the time, my spouse, my wife, she'd be at work, but my daughter would be home, and I had to take her. She might be home for like 15 minutes alone while I was coming home, and I'd take her to the bus stop, which is right in the corner. I'd have to drink a bottle of wine to take her to the bus stop, or like a couple shots of vodka, because I had to deal with people. And I didn't
in the morning.
Yeah, because I was so stressed from work. Like the alcoholism was awful. It was an awful thing, but I learned a lot from it. I'm going to put that out there too, you know.
Were you taking Xanax at the same time?
Yeah, I was taking it all. Like I didn't care. I became suicidal, like really suicidal. I've survived Russian roulette at least 5, 6, 7 times. I don't know what the odds of that are, but it's a lot.
Say that again.
I've survived not killing myself. Like I've had a gun to my head, mouth, whatever, pull the trigger with a revolver that had 1 round in it. And for whatever reason, it didn't go off. I would I still have muscle memory from doing this. I would empty my little 5-shot revolver.
So you were intoxicated and doing this?
Yeah.
You emptied your 5-shot revolver?
Put 1 round in it.
Oh, yeah.
Spun the cylinder, threw it back in. I can like feel it as I'm doing it. Muscle memory. It's weird.
All right, well.
No, it's all good. Cock the thing and do it. And when it went click instead of bang, it was like instant relief. And I felt no stress for like 6 weeks. So it was like this weird medicine in a way that I kind of sort of got addicted to, which is crazy, right? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think, it makes sense in terms of the intensity that you were feeling. And you were, there's ways that we cope that are adaptive, then there's some that are maladaptive. You were just trying to, if you think of the very basis of what happens when you go through trauma, you're trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, if you think of what trauma is, it's the absence of safety and connection, where you're completely isolated. You don't want to people, you don't want to go to the bus stop, you don't want to see anyone.
Mm-mm.
And the people you would need to be close to, you push away.
Mhm.
You're doing things by yourself, all
Yep.
aspects of social falls, and you don't feel safe within your own self.
Nope, not at all.
So, of course, things are going to happen to try to feel,
Mhm.
even if that's not a healthy thing.
Yes, it
it's
is.
a thing.
I did feel after that, and
Yeah.
I kind of got rid of everything, Now at work, I was fine. I was really good. I was doing good work, like my partner and I, we were go-tos for a lot of jobs. We handle stuff well. Everybody did though. That my layoff crew, the whole squad was just, man, I really bonded with those dudes, and that's where I felt like I belonged. And that's why I probably did my best work there. But I couldn't handle what I was seeing. In 2012, right after the ambush, all right, that was May 14th. On July 10th, I went to a baby not breathing on Spring Street, right? And I did CPR on this little 6-year-old or 5-year-old, I forget. Turns out she was murdered by her parents. She had years of abuse. Child was beaten, burned, broken. She was 8 years old. She was 8 years old. I did CPR on her, and she was already deceased, I do believe, but it hurt, And then that was July 10th. November 16th, 2012. This job really, really, really got me. I went to right out of roll call. I still had my coffee. I just got my coffee. We got sent to a motor vehicle accident at Calhoun and Pennington. So we're going, and en route, they say, now we're being advised it's a shooting. So, all right. You know how sometimes people get into it after a motor vehicle accident, they're arguing or whatever,
Mhm.
and somebody would always say, oh, there's a gun involved, just to get the cops there a little faster. That was my assumption. We both assumed that just based on the circumstances, how the radio call came in. It was a wrong assumption. I get there, I see a car against a tree, driver's side door open, female lying on the ground. And I see an elderly female who was obviously handicapped in the front of this car. So this woman on the ground, it's cold out. She's not breathing. I can't find a pulse. So I start doing CPR. Now I'm getting a crowd around me because it's 10:30 at night, and then, there's a crowd. And they're starting to say that she was shot and all this, but I'm not seeing any blood. Now, she had a lot of clothes on, whatever, but I'm not seeing that. And all I'm worrying about is no pulse, no heartbeat, or no pulse and no breathing. So I'm working on that. I bring her back twice. Each time she faded again. Finally, EMS gets there. We got the bag going. We're doing everything the right way, Crowd wanted us to scoop her in the police car and send her, take her that way. But I felt we did the best thing we could. However, she ended up dying. She was shot 9 times by her boyfriend in a domestic dispute. She had done everything right. She had the restraining order. He stalked her to where she was hiding from him. Her and her mother, who was the passenger in the car, were fleeing to Pennsylvania that night. And he saw them fleeing, and he lit her up 9 times with a handgun. So they called him. He went to jail. I had to tell Mom what happened. She was really handicapped. She couldn't turn around and see. How tragic is that? Not being able to watch, but hearing all this commotion and all these people. And I can't even imagine what that woman went through, And then, that was a lot on me. Just watching all this death up close and personal. It was a lot, and it just took a lot. It took a huge toll on me. Fast forward a little bit more to September of 13. I'm working what do they call that? Street crimes task force stuff. I did that a lot. It was great money. You just go out there. You got to wear your uniform, but you drove a plain car, and you just, patrolled stuff and
You just jumped out on people.
yeah. You just took care of those problem spots and problem people and all that good stuff. A lot of drugs and guns, and that was your primary thing, drugs and guns. Great. Love it. So we were doing that, and a call comes in about a guy. It was shift is ending. They're calling for units to block off streets on a guy that was suicidal. So he's in the house supposedly. So we go there, block off the street, whatever. Turns out the guy was suicidal, and he was armed with a crossbow, which is unusual. He's at the front of the house, and you hear him engaging. Apparently he was highly intoxicated. They're trying to talk him down and all this, but they had already called in the state police to come in with their negotiators and all the tools and tactics that they use. You know, we were kind of like outmatched, I guess, for doing this. In any case, I was at the back securing the place, and all of a sudden this kid comes to the door, his back door. Now, the back door is probably 30, 40 feet from me, 30 feet. And there's a screen door and a storm door, both glass panes. And he's got this crossbow that had a laser sight on it, a red laser sight. And all of a sudden, he's aiming this laser sight at me. And you can tell when one's being aimed at you because it blinds the heck out of you, you know? So I'm like behind this stockade fence, and I try to shift positions I lodged my flashlight in the top of the thing and then shifted left, hoping it would distract him, like it blind him and he wouldn't see me shift. He found me, and I'm like pointing my gun at him. He's pointing this thing at me. If that door is open, I would have been forced to shoot this guy, you know? But I'm sitting there like pulling, I'm letting up, I'm pulling, I'm letting up. And it lasted like a minute. And let me tell you, like I remember that, like so how intense that was, you know? It was only me he focused on out of like the 4 cops there. He was just following me with that damn laser. And then he changed direction, went back inside. And then our shift ended and we went home, and that was the end of it. Just like that, you know, and then come back to work the next day.
That's crazy, right? You go through all that intense, and you have to come back to work the next day like nothing happened.
Like nothing happened.
Or go home and deal with your family and your personal life like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. How many times did you want to say, hey, listen, I'm not right, but you just couldn't because of the fear of what they might do to you?
All the time. But I got to the point where you get used to it. You live with it. This is how it is. If I say anything, I'm going to get punished. So I'm not going to say anything.
Right. But
I don't even know, you know, it's just,
you live with it, but you suffer, man.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
suffer.
And you have no one to speak with, no one to turn to, because we're cops and we're supposed to be able to handle those situations and be fine with them and just go from that call to another call to another call, and it never stops.
Yep.
But who's there to help you?
At the time, I thought I was helping myself, but I was helping myself with drinking and like stressing and just, but I knew the whole time it was wrong. Like at that point, by the crossbow thing, like I was like, I'm drinking too much. I need to slow down, but I didn't want to. And I just didn't have the ability to on my own. I kept thinking I could, but it was kind of like, oh, I'll quit tomorrow sort of thing, you know? And it was hard. I don't know. I was just addicted to alcohol. I was addicted.
Doctor, that makes all sense to you, right? Everything he's saying?
Absolutely. There's no off switch for that kind of experience, that kind of physiology. So, you know, oh, I'm home now. Well, there's not an off switch. Like, okay, let me turn that off. You're carrying that all the time. And I noticed that you said, I had a cup of coffee, or it was cold out, or what that red light looks like. All of those are sensory experiences. There's no off switch for your senses. If your stomach's growling, you can't say stop. It's just a physiological experience. So of course you're carrying that into the next thing. Of course you're feeling that into each thing. And there's not enough, you know, of any substance to make that balanced. It just adds to the unbalance.
So how do we balance it as a profession? How do we decompress the right way? In your opinion, how do we do that? Guys that work the city streets.
I wish there was an answer. I always say the answer is elusively simple. It almost goes back to the very foundation of the things that calmed us when we were babies, right? If a baby's crying, you pick them up, you rock them, there's rhythm, there's sound, there's touch, there's safety. Look how far away from that we get by our career, by our occupation, by these kinds of experiences. So the answer is so elusively simple. It's coming back to exactly what you're doing right here, recognizing it, recognizing I went too far. This doesn't feel right. This is against my moral compass. And that there isn't, every time you feel it, it's going to come back at the same intensity. And to give yourself a little bit of grace and space on that, because it's not like you can say, oh, well, that was 10 years ago. Your body doesn't have a 10 years ago. So to recognize that and to meet it at the same intensity as when it happened to you, and be able to say, whoa, I have to realize this path didn't work for me. It's not a lot. That's a logical process when you're in a physiological state. So the more physiology you can insert into that, music, breathing, movement, it can start to counter that.
So the memory takes you back to that emotional state, and you relive that moment all over again as if it was happening right then and there.
Absolutely. At the same intensity. Right?
I can totally agree
We
with
can
that.
all.
A smell can do that. A sound can do that. A song can do that. Good and bad. I mean, you can think of probably, even if you have big kids, you can still feel what it felt like to hold them when they were little.
So that's actually,
there's not a separation or a time limit on how we feel things.
Like the smell of like baby powder or something like that.
Sure.
You know, like it just reminds you of so much, you know?
So one thing that I think that we lack because of this profession, because we're so, alphas and we're so macho, is that we forget to have compassion for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. I read this book. It was on TMS, which is tension myositis syndrome, right? How a scared brain and a hypervigilant brain can cause aches and pains that are unexplainable to doctors, right? There's nothing wrong with you, but my back hurts, my neck hurts. And it's like this loop. And what's it called? Neuroplasticity.
Yep.
And that's a big word for me because I'm reading it in the book. I'm like, what the heck does that mean, right? But your brain gets hardwired.
Yep.
And you start thinking, I have all this pain. There's nothing wrong with you, dude. It's a scared brain. You're hypervigilant. And you created these neural pathways that are like...
You guys remember the back problems I was having in internal affairs?
I do remember that.
You were having a lot of problems.
But that was probably caused from all the hypervigilance and stress and anxiety, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize at the time.
Does that make sense, doctor? Have you ever heard of that word, neuroplasticity? I'm sure you have.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites because it's
Actually,
really...
the first time I heard from it, heard that word came from.
It's learning and it's relearning, right? So we're wired for certain things. So I think that, there's so much gut to brain communication, not just brain to, there isn't mental illness. It's a whole system, right? So when you're feeling those pains, those are very real pains.
Yeah.
It's your body telling you something isn't right. Something just like the feeling of the hair up on the back of your neck or a gut instinct about somebody. When that's useful, it's good information. We're wired that way. That's why our brain continues to learn and grow. But we can also get stuck in ruts.
Yes.
The beauty part of that, we can change it with the same wiring that got us there in the first place, right? Going back to those things.
So you have to rewire your brain.
Absolutely.
So, wow.
So I think we want to know how.
I'll tell you this though. There's this interesting study from England called the London Cab Study, right? So that study, I've never been to London, but the roads are narrower than America. The cars are smaller and that kind of thing. Cabbies would go here, there, and do with the thing, but it was causing a lot of congestion. So whatever their service was, they wanted it to have them learn new routes to alleviate traffic. So, you've been driving the same way for like 20, 30, 40 years. Guys our age or older are taxi cab drivers. And like, how are they going to learn this, right? So if I'm not mistaken, they hit them with brain scans and they watched them learn these things. Like they couldn't use GPS. They actually had to learn it. But by learning all these new ways to drive, they developed new neural pathways in their brain. It was kind of like the basis for neuroplasticity. So the more you learn and practice something, the more it grows and your brain connects by creating new synapses and neural pathways. Is that
wow?
What happens when that's not available? Like where you work at, that doesn't exist. Like for example, you were going through all that trauma, all those situations, putting yourself in harm, playing these games with guns at home, drinking vodka,
Russian roulette.
Yeah, Russian roulette. Like where do you go? So basically, let's say for example, your mind, flight or fight. T-Rex is chasing you.
Absolutely.
You have to find a way to deal with it.
Right.
When you're a police officer, you can't fight.
Right.
How are you going to fight your employer?
Right.
well,
No,
it comes out in other ways.
I'm just saying because
absolutely.
that's your livelihood. It's a career. You're relying on that to provide for your family. So you're not going to fight with them because you're going to get thrown on midnights.
Right. I got you.
You don't want to be on midnights, right?
I've been there.
Yeah,
Already.
man,
Right.
I live that. I was
you
in
lived
fight
it.
mood every day for 20 years.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. That's my point.
sucks.
So you can't fight and you can't escape, run away from it because once again, that's your livelihood.
Right.
So what do you do when T-Rex is around you all the time and you have no choice? How do you deal with that?
Absolutely. So if you don't find, and I'm again, this sounds so easy. If you don't find healthy ways to deal with it, you're still going to do it. Now you might not do it at work, but you might fight at home. You might fly from important conversations. Hey, can we talk about this? I can't even, right? If we're going to be hyper vigilant, again, there's no off switch. So it's not maybe just going to be when you're with the uniform on. It's going to be when you're sitting in a restaurant and you need to have your back to the wall and you need to see all the exits and you always need to be aware of who is and isn't safe.
Yeah, that's not good. I lived there. I had those experiences. They're bad. Like you get on the plane and it's your mind. Or
You're looking for who's going to hijack the plane.
Yeah, you go to New York City and your family's around you and they're all having a great time and you're like on high alert.
Yep.
I had times where you were there for
It's a
one of
horrible
them,
feeling.
It is.
where the place itself, there was people that were company men where we worked, right? They acted as if the money was coming out of their pocket,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy.
right? Those guys. And
Like
those
if they were
guys
the
sometimes could be
taxpayers,
the
right?
worst guys to deal with because they lack common sense. All they see is
It's going to cost this much.
this. It's the book. It's the book. It's not human. It's not compassion. It's not trying to understand your subordinate in life. It's this way or the highway, right?
The
And that's
black and
okay.
white- the black and white way.
It's
Yeah.
and that's okay for some guys, right? Okay, that's fine. But I dealt with a few people like that, and I'm a human being, and I grew up on the streets as you did. You know what I mean? And right, a little bit, right? But we still had the compassion and love at home. But we grew up on the streets of Trenton. So the best way, and I went to Catholic school, and side note, the Catholic school, the nuns back in the, mostly the nuns, they would crack you.
You probably deserved it.
I probably deserved it, right? And then after school, we'd all fight each other in the alleyways in Trenton. And everybody's looking at, why are these kids so angry? Well, we just got our butts kicked for 6 hours in school. Why are we so angry?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're fighting each other in the alleyways. And that was the only way to resolve issues, is to fight, right? That's the way we did it. So there were times when I was at work and there was a boss that was just like, he didn't care, black and white. And I'm like, listen, my situation is this. Can you give me a hand? No, it has to be this way, right? Well, I would go train that night, and everybody I trained against, his face was on those people. And I'd hurt each one of those guys. And I would feel terrible when I went home. I'd take my licks too, but I'd give just as good as I got.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing that,
And that is,
100%. Because I'm going to also say that you were still that kid back in the alleyways.
no doubt.
It's
still
no
am.
different. You still carry it. But the tweak there is that you recognized it when you said, I felt bad about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really meant for them, is how you change where that goes. That
And
need
that's
to
why-
fight,
yeah.
you can channel it differently.
Because
It's not easy.
if I wasn't rational, that boss would have got it and I would have lost my job. And I'd probably end up in prison.
So you couldn't fight at work because
Couldn't fight.
you would have lost your job, your livelihood, so you had to go somewhere else
Did
to
you
let
ever-
out that frustration.
Did you ever seen a movie? I forget what movie it was, where the boss is talking to him like he's a piece of crap. You know what I mean? And the scene goes to where the guy's just beating the crap out of the boss, and he's throwing him around the office, and then boom, it zooms back, and the guy's still worried he didn't do anything to the boss.
He just fantasized.
Yeah, he's just fantasizing. I've been there. I've been there. Is it right?
Sure.
No, it's not right. It's not the way to
You're
be.
kind
But
of pre-wired to go that route.
yeah.
Or you're premeditating what you're going to
Like I'm looking at this guy and everything just goes silent, and I see me just throwing him around the office. You know what I mean? And that's not
I've
healthy,
been
and
in the
that's
office,
not
I'm
good.
watching him think that. I'm looking at it like, yeah, Joe's
You
going
called me
there.
when you called me a few
A
times.
few times.
I will say in patrol, sometimes guys are like, yo, Mike, chill.
Yeah.
Because like they realized that was going to come on to me, except it was out there.
So what Joe's saying also is a good point because it's not black or white as he's saying. I think it's more political. They're getting pressure from the politicians at City Hall about the budget, about money, about overtime, but yet they put you at risk. You were going through all that, going through all those calls for service,
I was hiding it well too.
playing with a gun, drinking vodka, taking Xanax, and no one noticed something not right
Towards
with
the
you.
end, yeah. Towards the end.
But they
There's
didn't
still more tragedy
Right,
coming.
there's more tragedy. My point is that someone had to see something in you that wasn't right, but because they were trying to
You know
get the
what, though?
manpower out there.
I'm going to say this. I wasn't the only one consuming alcohol like that at all by any
No
stretch
way,
of the
man. No
imagination.
way.
It's part of the culture.
It became, the thing is, when you're drinking a bottle of vodka, was numerous other people I know that were also drinking a bottle of vodka. And that really normalizes that behavior. It's not you. You're not the weirdo doing it. Because there's 3 or 4 other dudes, that are doing the same thing, and you're laughing and joking about your experiences, which is so tragic at this point. But,
What did you say that one time when we did that little pre-show at your house? You drank so much that your kidneys were killing you.
some days I come to work, my kidneys would literally hurt.
That's a lot of alcohol.
And somebody I remember talking to people who said, mine too, ha ha ha.
wow.
I don't even know what that is, but okay.
So, Doc, how do we? Let's say you were in charge of all police departments. let's give you that scenario hypothetically. What would be the first thing you would do to prioritize officers' mental health?
Yeah, I think that, it's really about, you said it, and I want to point that out, officers' mental health, because a lot of the training traditionally has been about how to better serve and protect. But you can't serve and protect unless you're serving and protecting yourself and the people around you are. So I think that early on, proactive, before the academy, the walking in the door, there has to be that recognition that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. But bigger than that, there also has to be a culture built around that, because I can buy that and say, yeah, that's true. I need to go to the gym. I need to do my jujitsu. I need to appreciate art or music or whatever. But that falls off the list when you're busy and there's overtime and you have a family and you have a life.
Mhm.
How do you get people to recognize that? And how do you create a culture around that? I think there have been some great steps in that direction, but there's a lot of stigma in that direction. There's got to be more resources to back it up. Not everybody, one size doesn't fit all in terms of what helps people. So if you say, well, here's what you do, just go talk to that person better be culturally competent. That person better understand that it's different. You also, in my opinion, have to think of if I say it's about safety, are you safe in your work environment? Because a lot of what you're describing doesn't sound very safe. And who do you have supporting you? Because coming from a family with my own family, a lot of times you're separating yourselves from the very people that should be your support system.
Yeah.
You don't tell your spouse or your kids what's going on. You don't tell your brother anymore, your sister anymore, whomever it might be. You become really isolated. If we don't recognize that, we realize it after it's already happened.
Right.
Really hard to undo that.
Right.
Not impossible, but hard.
Right. And there was like the final incident that really changed things for me was in July of 2014. We were driving up Rosemont, heading towards Hoffman, and which is like, it's a residential side street, row homes kind of thing, but it's a bad corner, Rosemont and Hoffman. We get there, I see a bunch of people running towards us. Now it's like 5 a.m. on a Sunday. So you really don't expect people to be out in groups. But all these people are running. We're like, what the heck? Then I see muzzle, shots, flashes, muzzle shots, whatever. I see a kid spin and he falls, like basically like around the corner. He falls. So we stopped to render aid. There's so many people out there. I told my partner, just watch my back while I'm rendering aid here, because I didn't want anybody to sneak up. You don't know who the shooter is, And I did CPR on that kid too, and he ended up dying right on the scene there, sadly. That really, really, really watching him die. I remember looking to his eyes. It just tore me up inside. And I had called you, Joe, actually 2 or 3 days later, you remember.
Yep.
I told you what was going on with me. And you were like, bro, you got to bite the bullet and go to rehab. Mm-hmm. And those are words that I listened to, actually, because I did. That day, I made a phone call to a PBA rep who showed up at my house. And he got me into Princeton House right here in Princeton, inpatient. I think it was 2 weeks. I think I did inpatient and then did outpatient for another maybe 2 months, He called work, talked to a particular captain who was in charge of things, who actually knew me very well and was like, okay, cool. So I felt safe at that point with work. Like, they're leaving me alone, let me do this. So I checked myself in, and it was the best thing. Wow, I never get emotional. Look at me. It was the best thing I ever did for myself, because I recognized things weren't right. And I always had that voice, and it never got to the point where I really got in trouble. I never ended up killing myself. I didn't get really hurt. And I never wanted to be that way. I just didn't want it, but it was there, and here it is. And I don't know how to get out of it because, as Kay had mentioned, I was completely isolated, but I always had that voice. So I went there and I just really worked my ass off. I got to say, I worked my ass off. I did AA for a little while. I learned some tools from them. And I did things my own way, with AA kind of being the structure that I used. I learned some things and I went back to work. But it was still difficult, it was still difficult because I was still doing shift work. I was on midnights, but I wasn't drinking. So I was doing okay with it. But there were a few times I did relapse, which is part of recovery, as I've learned over the years. Like, I just couldn't help it, or I'd be triggered by something, or something bad happened at work. If you fast forward to November 2014, I was on a warrant arrest. My partner was lodging the prisoner upstairs in our lockup area, and they put a home invasion out. Like, it was like 7 a.m. on like a Tuesday. So in my mind, I'm like, somebody's knocking on the door. They want them gone, kind of thing. No big deal. So it was in my zone, and I couldn't handle it because I was a one-man unit at that point. But they sent another 2-man unit to it. But since our day was wrapping up, I'm like, I'll head out there and take a report if need be, So I'm heading out there. They're heading out there. And they start yelling that shots fired, this, that, the other. It turns out the guy ran out of the house, whatever his mission was inside that house. He saw the cops and just started firing at him. So you guys probably ended up at that scene yourselves, right? So
I remember that.
Yeah.
the gunfight took place through the windshield.
Yeah.
And they ended up, the bad guy, thank God, well, not thank God. Thank God our guys weren't hurt. Unfortunately, the bad guy ended up being deceased. Just one of those things. You know, I heard the one guy, cop, who was my partner for a couple of years on the street, yelling, I've been shot, I've been shot. I mean, you guys remember the radio tape, right?
Yeah, I remember.
So that was out there, and like, you hear somebody you know and care about saying, I'm shot, man. Holy smokes, you know? Thank God he wasn't. All the glass from windshield made him bloody, and he just, you know, naturally assumed he was shot. When I saw that car and all that, I remember sitting there kind of dumbfounded. And then somebody said somebody to somebody. They made the whole squad stand up mandatory, but I was allowed to go home, you know? And I did. It was like a month after I got back to work from all the rehab stuff.
Yeah, Joe,
No, I mean, look, you know, you definitely, as a lot of city cops, city guys, you've definitely seen a lot, man. You've been through a lot. You said it got to the point where me and you spoke, and, you know, I offered my advice to go to rehab, and you took it. Do you think there's a central theme in there where you just never quit, and eventually, I would say divine intervention?
Dude, I don't ever
Found, I mean, I met you back 2002. I don't know. I forget what it was. And somehow you ended up here, you ended up there. I ended up here, I ended up there. Boom, we connected again. Dude, you need help, because I've seen you through the years. You got the help.
not only that, Joe, but I recall one time where you called me. I was in
Oh,
bed.
yeah. That was a different time.
Yeah, but we were aware that you were.
we always looked out for
Yeah.
Mike, because we knew.
Yeah. So I was in bed
Man.
one day. It was like 11:30 at night. He calls me. I get out of my bed and I go to your house.
Yeah,
I told him-
I put something alarming online.
I said, you got to
believe.
get to that kid's house
Yeah.
now.
In
Because
like a
I don't know
blog,
what the hell's going
police
So
on.
blog. or
I'm
something.
in my bed, but I'm comfortable, bro. And I'm like,
Anyway,
okay, Joe,
yeah.
I'm gonna go.
He got him, and then he called me and he said he's all right. He's just, in the bag.
So my thing is that we were aware of that, but no one else was aware of it.
No, they were aware, but they didn't care.
I trusted you
That's a
guys
good
more
point.
though. I think because the internal affairs experience and just
Man.
we knew secrets that nobody else did throughout the department.
Still
And
do.
Yeah,
A lot of them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
But getting back, what was your relationship with God? Did you ever pray? What was your outlet? Did you have any kind of spirituality
yeah, at that time.
when you were going through all this?
Mhm.
You did pray.
Yeah.
And what was your relationship with the Creator, whoever? I don't even know what your religious denomination
Catholic,
is.
just like you.
Catholic. Where were you there? I mean, did you go to church? Did you pray? Did you ask
more,
for help?
more spiritual stuff. A lot of praying, Catholic-based spirituality. I would say at that
Mhm.
time.
And when your prayers weren't being answered, where did you go?
I left it for a while. I came back to it after I got to the point where I was really recovered. Like right now, we're at that second ambush. I'm still at work. I was not nearly recovered, not
Right.
remotely. I was still suffering badly, but I wasn't drinking. So there was some positive change. And like you said, dude, I've learned that I will get through anything you throw at me. And I'll get into the past 3 years of my life in a few minutes. But, that ambush, I decided to retire early. Now, I kind of rolled the dice and took a chance. I applied for what's called an accidental disability pension, and you have to get approved for it and all this. And if you don't get approved, the pension is not very good. If you get approved, you're good to go. It's like a normal pension. 8 months, lawyer, all that good stuff. It got approved. Thank God, right? So I sitting there at home. I'm retired. I retired January 1st, 2016. And I told myself, I'm going to spend a year just healing and not doing anything. And exactly what I did, sort of. I kept busy doing things, but I started working with my hands again. I started building things again. Like I have a really nice wood shop in my garage. I don't know if you guys ever seen that, been over there, but it's, it's nice. And I started working in there, started doing this, just stuff around the house, home improvement stuff. And I started feeling normal again. And I remember when it got warm again, like in the spring and summer, I was just like putting my feet up in the backyard and go, oh my God, I'm so lucky. And then I started to feel what I refer to as gratitude, which is something that we've talked about in resiliency a lot. having gratitude for where I was at, having gratitude to have a paycheck coming in, having gratitude to not show up to work, having gratitude for survived all that nasty stuff, right? And momentum started with me, I started doing things. I worked for a guy he's a dentist in Princeton. He gave me a couple of contracting jobs and it just started snowballing from them, right? Take care of offices and do things like that. Like just little side stuff, no big deal, just me, but things are great with that. So I'm rolling with that. I ended up, learning a lot about resiliency stuff. That's where Kate and I had met about 2 years, 3 years. Oh, a person on our job committed suicide. And it hit me. I wasn't particularly friends with this guy, like super close, but we were tight. It was very shocking to me. And I had reached out the day that I heard he committed suicide. It really kind of bothered me. He was a real popular guy around the department. Guys, so I know what I mean. And I wrote an email to a guy I knew was the chief resiliency officer for the county of Mercer, to the prosecutor's office guy, and he got me started taking a resiliency class. It was a 2-day class and things just started snowballing for me with the resiliency stuff. And I started learning things. And then a project got started to create a resiliency curriculum that is actually being taught kind of like all over the place, whatever, for this company. And that's where I met Kate and a few other experts in resiliency, which is basically the science and art of bouncing back from adverse experiences. It's really the simplest way to put it. It became a requirement for law enforcement in Jersey that every cop has to take a 2-day resiliency class, right? So I started teaching these classes and things just start rolling, man. Like the story I just told, which I thought was such a horrible story, became my strength. People listened to me. I would talk in front of all kinds of people and they would just be like, Mike, wow.
Do you think 2 days is enough?
We've taught week-long ones?
I think it's something.
What do you think, Doctor?
Yeah, it needs to be
2
all
days?
the time in your own practice. And I think having a requirement for it is good because things happen by policy, right? Not to say that's a perfect way, but I think that changes culture and it just brings that awareness. You guys had mentioned neuroplasticity, and it's a lot of what you said made me think of this, that it's not just a rewiring, it's a recognition of wiring we already have. So for you to use tools that, you go back into art, you go back into things that your soul already knows, it's already wired into you, connections wired into you. That's why you called him that night, because he felt safe, you felt connected. That's why you had the gut instinct, we better reach out for this guy. It's all there. It's just the recognition of that wiring. And if we remind people, and it sounds so, I don't mean to sound so, it's that simple. It's certainly not. Mm-hmm. It's like an exercise over and over. And if you have a rut, just like anything in Jersey, your tire gets stuck in a rut. It's rough to get out of it. And you have to work even harder not to get back into it.
Exactly.
So listening to Mike's story and listening to Joe and I speak on the previous podcast, what are your recommendations for someone in it right now?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think when you're in it, as they say, hindsight's 20/20, right? You can look back and say, well, I could have, I should have, all these turning points. I think that when we can, I ask this of a lot of places that I've been where I've gotten to talk to people like you all. And I say, how many people do you trust? And the number's somewhere between 0 and not very many, right? I think identifying people who are resources at those times. And sometimes it's surprising. Like you said, it's somebody you don't even expect. It might not be the person assigned to do that task or that job, but it might be somebody, you might not have all been best friends at the time, but you saw something in him, So I think identifying, and whether you're in schools, whether you're in family, whether you're in your department, who are some of those resources that can make those connections? Yes. So if somebody's going through it, I might say, hey, who has a connection with him that might be able to reach him in a way that's a little bit different? Sometimes it's, a chaplain. Sometimes it's, someone, to kind of holistically look at who your resources are, even to do that in your own life. When I'm going through it, who's somebody I'll call? Not who am I supposed to call? Who will I actually call? Right. I think that's part of it. And I've been in spots where you don't even know who that person is. So whatever those basic baseline triage tools are, to stop somebody in that moment. If you use cop to cop, if you use a person, if you use a medical intervention, exactly. Sometimes if we can identify those, I feel like then that might give somebody a little bit of hope, to, and it's hard to find hope in those dark moments, but it might be easier to find a jiu-jitsu class, a a drinking buddy. It doesn't sound, in the way that you're doing it, it might not be healthy in that moment, but it might be the pathway to something that is going to bring you to a healthier place, that you're going to recognize I can use this in a more productive way,
That's
even if
funny you
right
say
now I'm
that.
not.
Yeah. Well, there was an old timer that told me one time, he goes, if it wasn't for the bar and my bartender, I probably would have killed myself.
Mm-hmm.
He would go to the bar,
Therapy.
cry, whatever he just saw,
It's
talk to the
therapy.
bartender. The bartender would be his therapist. Not that I'm condoning going to the
Sure,
bar and getting
but-
loaded, but back in the day, that's the way the old timers handled it.
Absolutely.
You know?
What I've noticed too, like, so, okay.
Like Joe and I, when he more him than me because he
Of
was
course.
going through it.
Of course, more me.
Because you were going through some serious stuff, but we used to go for a ride, remember?
Yeah, and you used to hit me with the Bible
No,
quotes.
not just that, but we just would laugh to the point where we would have to pull the
Laughter
car
is,
over.
Oh, man,
laughter
the
is the
laughter-
cure in police world.
Listen,
for
if
sure.
it wasn't for the laughter, I
For
probably would have
sure.
quit or
Yeah.
something worse.
The thing is-
I probably would have just said,
for us. Like,
Tell
we
me
would
you
go-
know what, I'm
though.
just leaving this state.
How many
You know what I
times
mean?
have you like told a joke in front of the wrong people? And they're looking at you like you got three heads because you made some like crazy joke because you used to police jokes.
This kid,
That's probably him.
I would do that all the time. Like, and
Well,
people
I
are
have to
looking at me
catch
like I'm
myself.
nuts. I'm like, shoot,
But
you guys aren't
for
cops.
us, leaning on each other in that office
Yeah.
and going for a ride and just laughing
Yeah.
at stupid stuff would help us.
Well, we laughed a lot. in
And
that
we would
office.
bring in guys for like serious jobs and we'd start joking with them
Yeah.
just to get, because you could feel the,
tension.
somebody would walk in and you could feel that their energy, they're like, these guys are trying to take my job. No, man. And we'll tell them a joke and they'd look at us like,
Like,
Yeah, you
What
guys,
the hell
you
is this?
guys definitely
Like,
did.
I
it
was
the
just
right
some
way.
kind of
one guy
like,
would
you know-
Joe would make a comment. The guy he would look at me and he'd look at Joe and be like, confused.
yeah, because I wanted to take that edge off them because I
Right.
know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like there's no need for
Yes.
you to be super nervous. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Everything's going to
God,
be
the
okay.
interviews we conducted like during those really political times. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
those
we had
were
we had
so
the referee
intense.
through some childish stuff, and these were
Wow.
grown-ups,
Yeah,
and we were the referees.
it was horrible.
You know,
So you're in a good place now, Mike?
Well, yeah. I mean, since all that good stuff, doing the contracting stuff, I spent 3 years teaching STEM subjects to elementary school kids. That was really good. I did it in West Windsor, Princeton, and Plainsboro school districts.
Good,
Had a
man.
really good time after school projects or, programs and summer programs. I spent about a year taking care of a guy that had late stage Alzheimer's. I spent, my mornings playing bocce at the Hamilton Senior Center. It was great. I would meet all the octogenarians during that time and then hang out with the kids in the evening. And
And I can see how that makes you feel. Like you're
yeah, I
lighting
loved
up when you're
it. I
talking
loved
about it.
I
which
got
is
into
good.
doing the resiliency stuff.
Mhm.
I've become a master resiliency trainer and a resiliency program resiliency program officer for the state of New Jersey through the AG's office over the past few years.
Mhm.
I work for the Cop to Cop program that helped save me. I do that a lot actually. And most recently I've started a photography business,
Good.
the art of resilience, I called it, because that's what I do.
Good,
Resilient.
good.
The thing is, though, okay, we're talking about this. I'm talking about all the good times. I'm smiling and I'm very happy. But the past 3 years of my life have included tremendous amounts of trauma, physical trauma, personal trauma, and family loss, like unbelievably. But I've learned these skills, this neuroplasticity that we talked about.
Mhm.
Okay. And just real quick, my mom died 3 years ago. My beloved car got stolen from my driveway by 3 guys with guns. That sucked, believe me. It triggered all kinds of stuff psychologically. Last November, 15 months ago, my brother committed suicide, as I've mentioned here before.
Mhm.
After my brother committed suicide, my father and I had a falling out. It did not go well because of his trauma that he never took care of, I feel. He's a former Marine, Vietnam vet, combat veteran, and he had really bad PTSD and he never really managed it, never learned to manage it. I ended up just this past Christmas, I got a phone call the 26th of December telling me that my father had passed away. I learned that he had actually passed away on Thanksgiving around there, a month and a half before. Nobody told me. Nobody from my family advised me. Nothing about it. I got his will in the mail, and that just excluded me from every bit of everything. And my dad died as an example to me, showing where I could have been and I don't want to be that way. I'm happy. You know, that's a tremendous amount of trauma I've been through.
It's
You
a good
know,
lesson learned, right?
a lot of loss. Like I don't have a family anymore, basically, but I'm good with it because I'm strong inside and I've learned to bounce back from these things.
And you're
I've
doing
learned to
something
do
very
well.
positive with us here. Doctor, in closing, final thoughts?
Yeah, I listened to a lot of what you were saying, and even how you identified how your body structure changed when you talked about some of the tools you've put into place. And when you were talking about like working with new guys and whatever, and you pick up on how they feel, right? If we can look at that, if we can look at the traumas we go through as a physiological thing, not a logical thing, then I think that speaks a lot to having conversations like this to talk about how do we change that? You know, how do we reinforce some of those, our neuroplasticity, but reinforcing what we're built for, the safety, the connection, the OG wiring that we kind of get away from because of these experiences, because we make the abnormal normal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you return to it, your entire physiology changed sitting in that chair.
Oh yeah.
That recognition really is, I think, the heart of resilience and change and growth and hope.
Yeah, definitely.
Just that what we spoke about earlier, the memory, the emotion, and then the physical reaction.
Yeah.
But I don't really have that anymore. Or I do, and it's
No, but when you're talking about like the good stuff you're doing.
yeah,
Like,
the good stuff is great.
you
I
lit
mean,
up and you smiled.
feel
and
it.
it was
yeah,
like, yeah.
and like the thing is too, like I've had 3 surgeries in the past 7 months, major surgeries from crashing my mountain bike. But guess what? I'll be riding soon, April 1st.
Joe?
Yes. So, doctor, do you do public speaking on stuff like this, or do you?
Yeah, I've actually been really fortunate to be able to talk to a variety of different groups and people about something that I think is really shared. Stress, trauma, adversity is ubiquitous. A lot of people experience it, and a lot of people struggle with it, and a lot of people have learned from it. So I think it's, if anything, yes, I do speak on it, but more, I think I facilitate conversations with people who are really wise in that space. So I'm grateful for you being part of that conversation. I think it's shared, and when there's an opportunity to talk about it, everybody learns and grows.
Excellent.
Good?
Yeah. Mike?
I'm just glad to get the story out there. As horrible as things were for me, man, I've learned to do things the right way. You know, I've changed it around, and now I just kind of have this goal mission of going out helping others get through the same stuff. And I talk about those painful things like suicide, like alcoholism. I talk about it very, very, very openly. And I have for a very long time now, because I feel people can learn from what I went through. And maybe I can plant a seed in somebody where they go along the path of getting help and making the attempts to get better.
And I believe you have. Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you
For joining
really
us and giving us the insight that you have and helping us out, and also helping people who are watching the show deal with whatever it is they're going through.
If anybody out there is experiencing that kind of pain that I spoke about and the doctor elaborated a little bit about, there's a book out there. It's called The Way Out by Alan Gordon. Do an audio book, get the regular book, and just immerse yourself into the book. I've listened to it 3 times. I'm not a big reader because I think I have an ADHD thing going on, and I just get distracted. So I just sit wherever I'm in a quiet space, and a half hour a day, I'll just listen to the audiobook, and it hits on so many different things. Hypervigilance. A lot of cops have hypervigilance. It's just the way we're programmed after a certain amount of time, and how that can just turn inward and just wreak havoc
I
on
think
your
trauma
body.
survivors in general have hypervigilance.
And The Way Out by Alan Gordon. Again, check it out. It's really helped me with a lot of things, not just pain, but different things in my life. And that's it. We'll be back.
Reading has definitely helped me. You're a fan of Dr. Bruce Lipton by any chance?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, when you speak, I hear, I read his books and I can hear it. But you want to acknowledge any falling officers? You spoke about that earlier.
Yeah, we lost, the Trenton Police Department's lost, I think, what was it, Mike? Like 4 officers within the last year.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how the families would feel if we mentioned their names, but I knew them. Jose knew them. Mike.
All good brothers.
All good brothers, absolutely.
And if that's not a wake-up call to live your life every day as if it's your last, I can attest to that because I almost passed away, like I stated. Gratitude goes a long way on everything. Be compassionate to yourself. Treat yourself as if you're looking at yourself when you were 7 years old and having those emotions that you're having right now, what would you say to yourself? Would you smack the kid? Would you smack yourself? Or would you give yourself a hug, a pat on the back, and tell yourself it's going to be okay? That's what you want. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely.
100%. 100%.
That's a
You couldn't have said
lesson.
it
Somebody
better.
told me that exact thing a long time ago, and I've always remembered it.
Yeah. I know it sounds corny to the alpha males out there that are bench pressing 600 pounds and doing all this crazy stuff. At the end of the day, be kind to yourself. Show gratitude. Enjoy the little things. Mike does the bird watching, right?
I love it. It's my new thing.
I mean, like, I look at these pictures, I'm like, wow, this guy's bird watching.
Yeah.
And how much fun do you have doing
I
that?
do it every day. Go out with my camera and take pictures of birds. And they're turning out pretty darn good, I got to
Yeah,
say.
very
Find
good.
something that gives you joy and do it. And that's all I have to say for today. We will be back.
Absolutely. We'll be back and take us out, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike, do it.
I just want to thank everybody for being here, paying attention. Thank you, Kate, so much for being
Yes, thank
here.
you, Dr.
We
Kate.
really,
Thank you.
really
Thank you for
greatly
being here.
appreciate you and everything you've added to our conversation, enhancing our show today.
And you're on
Wow.
social media, right?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
A little bit.
We can follow-
I'll do better.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Truly, I'm honored.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe our podcast.
Don't forget to click. You got to
like,
click.
click, and subscribe, as they say. Yes.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.